Hello everyone, I am Tacit, and today I'm going to be going over the Brighter Shores faux pack system, as well as how the combat system works as far as leveling, distribution, and everything with it, as of Project Milestone. I've kind of been waiting a little bit closer to 1.0 before we really cover any guides on the game overall, but I figured we cover this just because there's a good chance that this system is going to stay in place throughout the entirety of, until 1.0. There might be some small changes to it whenever they finally add like the skill tree and other things to combat, which unfortunately this does not do, but it does set into stone, or what will likely set into stone, the new system for combat. It is basically an in-between of the two combat systems we've had in the past, whereas at launch the way that combat system worked is every single chapter was divided up, so any combat that you did in any chapter did not progress the other chapters. However, you had the choice of doing combat wherever. You could go to one zone, a different zone, didn't really matter. You still got to basically decide where you wanted to do combat. Then they end up changing that system where your level constantly kept going up, but you were forced to have to go from chapter to chapter. You're forced to go to chapter 1, then 2, then 3 to 4, then back to 1, so on and so forth. You didn't really have much to dictate how you wanted to go about your leveling system, which left really big gaps but if you wanted to go and do something in a specific chapter. But now they have basically gone for an in-between of that system, where every 50 levels you can choose what zone you want to go to next. There's still the 500 level cap per every single zone, which is 10 milestones per every single zone. However, you do have the ability every 50 levels to dictate where you want to go, and the entire time you're still progressing in levels, so you're still getting stronger gear, you're still progressing one big combat level rather than zoned out combat levels. It just now you have the option to choose where you want to go for every single chapter. So with all that out of the way, I just wanted to go over a quick overview of how you can distribute these points, as well as ways that you can use it to multi-skill, as well as just various methods that have been changed or improved or even reduced as far as how some of the new combat systems end up working for leveling. So first things first, let's go over how to actually use these, because the main reason I wanted to go over this update should be hitting on Monday, which is at this point in this video basically one day away after the Super Bowl. But the main reason I wanted to go over this is it's right around the corner, and as you'll see, as soon as we log into one of these slots, it basically prompts you the second you log in, like boom, faux pack. Like it's the first thing you pretty much see. Well, first you see any refunded gold that you end up getting from hides and whatever else end up getting refunded, but the next thing that you would see after that screen would be your faux pack distribution. So this system, when you're just kind of looking at it initially, seems kind of convoluted when you go through all these screens and everything else, but the basic gist of it is you're choosing what zones you already have completed. So of course, if you're seeing this menu right now, if you're not like already a low level, like level 50 or like below, this means that you already have combat levels, and basically every single choice that you make here is dictating zones that you have already completed. So you basically want to distribute these into areas that you basically don't want to do, essentially, since whatever ones you end up doing these in are basically considered completed. So for example, if I was to put 5 levels into Hopeforest, we would be half completed on Hopeforest. This would be like in the original system if you had 250 for, what was it called? Not Guardian. What was it called? Was it Guardian? I forget what it was called for this one. But, if you had 250 in that one combat specifically for Hopeforest, that is basically the equivalence of what that system was. So it's basically just completing out levels that you don't want to do. With that being said, there are 2 zones that are, I would personally say, the worst zones to end up doing for combat right now, and these are Chronopolis and Mines of Tunubin. The main reason for these 2 is they have no multi-scaling capability, something we'll be going over in a little bit during this video, breaking down all the options that we have for that, but neither of these have any multi-scaling capability, unlike chapters 1 and 2, and hopefully chapter 5. But the other issue with these is, more so with chapter 3, is you get a ton of alchemy drops, and while this is good to do some, like you definitely want to do some Mines of Tunubin, it gives you way too many, and you constantly have to keep banking way more than any other combat method in the game, meaning a lot of your time is spent banking. And I did do the math, it's like 1 or 2 gold per effective hour banked, but you have to do so much combat to get to that effective hour that it's really not that worth it. Obviously you do want to bank some supplies just so you have it for alchemy for whatever your level range is, resources. But if you're already a pretty high alchemy level, or just don't really want to have to deal with the constant flow of resources on the ground, it is one of them that you probably want to go pretty heavily into. This is also a really good zone to get out of the way for alt accounts, so if you have one that's constantly AFKing, because if you constantly AFK all the way from milestone 0 to 10, you're going to have way too much alchemy supplies that you could ever realistically use for when you end up doing it for, like, you know, the passives. Like, let's see, can I find the mining passive right here? Like, look at how small the level range is going to be for this mining one. It's literally 5 levels. Do you know how much supplies you are going to get from level 0 to 10 milestone, 500 levels? I can guarantee you it is way more than 5 levels. It is absurdly more than 5 levels, meaning Mines of Bitumen is a very exceedingly high priority one to end up getting out of the way, just so you don't end up getting just an absurd surplus of way too much excess supplies. Having more of the potions, like, you know, the active potions isn't as bad, because obviously having more of those can be good for just using your own knowledge points and stuff like that. But basically, it's one of the highest priority ones that you want to get out if you're doing it on passives, whereas if you're doing it actively, Chronopolis is probably the one that you want to get rid of, is basically the bottom line. If you're passiving a lot on an account, get rid of Mines of Bitumen. If you're actively playing on an account, try to get rid of Chronopolis. With that being said, if I was to go on Monday, when we go do our stream around noon Eastern Standard Time here on the channel, if I was to distribute these points, the way that I would personally be doing it is putting 1 into Hopeport, because I do plan to do a lot in Hopeport soon, but I still want to get it out of the way, because once we get 500 Forager, we're basically never going to need it again. And then I'm just going to max out Chronopolis, and then put the rest into Mines of Bitumen. One thing to keep in mind is you might want to keep these at level 8 or 9, so that if the area ever gets buffed, you can still come back to them again, which is worth considering. So maybe I would leave 1 point here, just in case that something ends up happening with that. So either 8 or 9, so that you do have some wiggle room. So let's say, for example, Chronopolis is pretty bad right now because Leatherworker got nerfed into the ground as of the Milestones update. And even before the Milestones update, it was pretty much not really worth picking up the hides. And now it's even less worth picking up the hides. If they were to ever make it so that you get 4 to 6 completed leather instead of just the hide, like fully finished process hide, like 4+ at a time, 6, 8 drops, then maybe Chronopolis would be worth it, but then it would have the same issue as Mines of Bitumen, in the sense that, you know, you'd have a ton of banking if they dropped like 6+ at a time that you would need a bank. So it's a really high priority just to get rid of, just because it's just not worth doing the hides, and you get a lot of that secondary drop that's just going to be wasted on the ground that could have been otherwise actually useful drops, like coins or literally anything other than hides. So from here, we could either keep going, but if we want to leave a little bit of wiggle room, keeping it at 8, keeping it at 9 is potentially a good idea, depending on what your level range is. So from here, we would then end up going and putting our rest into milestones, but be very careful with your very last point. It'll do a sound effect. How's our volume? It's currently set to the beta volume, but it will do a sound effect. Oh no, we'll turn everything up a little, but it will do a sound effect whenever we do end up reaching the final one. So before you end up hitting that, make sure to actually allocate your final one to where you want to currently do combat. There's a couple different areas that you might want to do that for, like finishing out Mines of Bitumen, but the main two is Hopeport and Hopeforest. I personally will be doing Hopeport because I want to go get 500 Forager is my lowest skill. I've been putting it off due to the current combat system, not really allowing multi-skilling that well, but this combat system now does. So I've been saving it for this, and the main reason we want to go do Hopeport is they are adding a new venture slot for getting 500 Forager, or more so for finishing out the monument, which basically requires 500 Forager, as you would need to go get the final milestone piece, which is all the way still at level 490. So at that point, obviously, you might as well get 500 if you're that close already. Plus, it might get it that. Oh no, never mind. They actually increased it. It's now 490 or 942. Oh no, that's even lower. Oh no, am I looking at the right one? Yeah, I'm looking at the right one. Oh no. Yeah, but you'd still have to get really high. Like, it is still absurdly high how much you need to get, which is basically 500 already. It's just weird translating the numbers. I really hope, I don't think they added it to settings, but they really add a way to basically change the default number, because it is so confusing to translate this. Like, this is technically level 492. But it doesn't look like 492, it's just 9 milestone with a 42 other milestone number, which can get pretty confusing. Not sure if they're going to do something to kind of help with that in the future, because it's really weird to say what that number is, because I'm probably still going to call them based on their original number. But anyways, so we would just keep distributing into Mines of Bitumen, getting rid of these points, and as soon as we hear the sound effect, or we can end up counting, we will end up knowing to go into Hopeport. I'm just going to wait on the sound cue. I would assume this would be the same case in the live game. I don't see any reason why they would change it. So one more point here we can end up doing, and then there will be a sound cue right here. and that indicates that you're at your current milestone level. So now that we're at our current milestone level, this is the most important one to end up choosing, as this is where we are now going to do our combat. So everything we chose right there is stuff that we don't ever have to do again. I basically am level 400 Chronopolis. If we were a Dragon Guard in the original system, we're 400 Mind Fighter basically in the original system, if you were to compare it to that. And now we would go into Hopeport. So these are basically almost completed. They have like 100 level room in case we want to go back for some alchemy supplies for Mines of Matubin, or Chronopolis in case they ever buff the hides or any drop there to make it even remotely useful to do combat there. But now we would want to actually allocate it to one of the two good zones, Hopeport and Hopeforest. And since I plan on going for the monument grind, we would end up doing that of Hopeport. And then we would go and start doing all of our multi-skilling stuff, which we'll be showing in a little bit. However, I do want to go over two other potential alternative as far as leveling up your milestones. So let's go over that first before we go into all of the multitasking that you can end up doing. So first, let's go for a little bit more realistically leveled account. So if you're someone who's only been playing a little bit and hasn't really been like power grinding or anything, you're probably around like a level 100 to 500 level range, which is about a milestone like 1 to like what, 10ish or so, as far as what your level would be. So here we currently have one right in the between of that. We're like 4.5 or so as far as where our milestone is. So there's a couple different ways that we can end up distributing these points. Given that we're exactly at 4, one logical way to do this, if you want to unlock a basic amount of enemies in every single location, is simply put every 1 point into every single chapter. We have exactly enough points with how many we have to go do 1 into every chapter, and we are good to go. That is not quite what I want to do with my alt accounts though. The way I want to go and distribute them is throw one in either Hopeport or Hopeforest. It doesn't really matter too much, so I guess I will personally put it into Hopeport here. However, the rest of these points, due to of course Mines of Bitumen giving way too much passive material, and these accounts are probably going to be passiving pretty heavily, is I want to go all in on Mines of Matubin. This is an area that you probably want to get out of the way really early. You could also end up saving it for absolute last, but basically with your old accounts, it is the worst location to be doing passive. So you either want to get it out of the way immediately and just kind of bypass it, or you can end up saving it for absolute last and go into every other zone. So in this case, we are basically going all in and just trying to get Mines of Bitumen out of the way first so that we can end up doing combat here. Of course, the biggest issue with Mines of Bitumen combat is also you get double XP for your highest activity, by the way. That's why we're here. Whatever your highest activity is for any given milestone, you now gain a set amount of double XP. I'm not sure exactly how long it lasts, as they have increased it as of one of the patches, but it lasts for some amount of time. So instead of getting a lower amount from previous activities, you just get double for a limited amount of time for whatever your best activity is. In this case, our giant rat. But in Mines of Matubin, every single creature in this location ends up dropping alchemy supplies. And as we saw earlier, these alchemy supplies end up giving you way too much than you would ever need, making this a pretty bad location to ever do passive in. So if you want to do it on your alt accounts to get it done quickly, just out of the way, you could either do it first, or you can save it for absolute last and just ignore it all the way until the final 500 levels. Either or ends up working out. It just really depends how you want to do it. But it is a really bad location to passive, because if we go check this right now, this is the 6% moderate potion, which of course we will end up needing to make at some point. However, if we go and check this, is this it right here? It should be somewhere in here, I believe. There it is, the moderate mining potion. You know how many levels we need to do this for? 5. You know how many we will get from passively doing this activity all the way to level 100, or 500, I mean, milestone 10, or, you know, basically maxing out Mines of Matubin? We would end up getting probably, like, gosh, how many days would that even be? Like a month of these? Whereas 3 days of this is already enough to get way more than enough that we would need for this. Probably even just 2 days of this would end up getting all that you would need. Yet, if you were to do this all the way to maxed out Mines of Matubin, you're going to have so much excess, which is really bad, making this by far the worst passive location. So either get it out of the way first for your alt accounts, or simply save it for absolute dead last. Either or would be the way that you would want to end up doing it, just so you don't have to deal with it ever again. But doing it some is still worthwhile. But if you are a high enough level where you can avoid doing Mines of Matubin, so you can avoid stuff like this for passives, it is highly advised doing so, as you will get way too much alchemy supplies just in general from passiving it and activating it. So the more that you can get rid of Mines of Matubin, the better. With that being said, there's another route we can end up doing. This is personally not a route I'll be doing, because I have different plans, because I want to go do Hopeport to go get the monument completed over the next like month or so. However, the thing that you could end up doing if you don't care about getting that monument spot, or if you already have 500 Forager, is go and just put 1 point into either Hopeport or Hopeforest. You're kind of forced to have to do one of these initially. But then we can go and simply get rid of the worst two, and then go actively do something like Mines of Bitumen so that we can get our small amount of alchemy supplies, but not overkill it so that we have just excesses that we have to end up selling out. So here we're going to end up going all in on Chronopolis in order to go and just not have to deal with this ever again. We're just going to assume they're never going to buff the drop table in Chronopolis, and now we are basically 500 Dragon Guard, like if it was in the original system of the game. We have completed Chronopolis. We are never going to need to fight anything in Chronopolis ever again, other than, you know, quests or raids or, you know, the future things they might add in that area. But for all intents and purposes, as far as the general enemies are concerned in that chapter, we never need to go back there again for any general enemies, which is good because their drop tables are just awful. With that being said, now we are going to go all into Mines of Bitumen. Before we do though, this is what it looks like if you have put 0 points into a location. So I do not have any into Mines of Bitumen, and you can see here I cannot actually fight these enemies right now, as well as any of the enemies pretty much. I think there's like a few small ones that they end up adding in like the first tier or something, but most enemies in this chapter we cannot attack because we have no milestones into this chapter. Also, if you do get out of this screen, like the milestone screen, but you still have points to allocate, you just click over here to go and allocate them if you do get out of the screen for whatever reason. Otherwise, they'll pop up immediately every time you log in. So if we go and log out right now, for example, I believe it will immediately bombard us with the screen again, which is why you do want to allocate these points, because if you don't, every single time you log in, you get popped up with this thing being like, hey, you should probably go allocate these points. So it is a good idea to go and allocate these points, which is what this video is going over. Anyways, so next we are going to go all in on Mines of Bitumen because we're trying to get rid of this, but we're also going to go and actively start doing this. Instead of doing Hopeport or Hopeforest or anything, we're going all in on Mines of Bitumen, going to go claim our alchemy supplies now so we can go train alchemy with it and just go get this immediately out of the way. So we'll get the 2 worst zones out of the way now. We have 10 points into Chronopolis and 7 points now into Mines of Bitumen. As you can see now, we can end up fighting these enemies here, which similarly to the other ones also end up dropping alchemy supplies. But since we leveled so deeply into Mines of Bitumen, we're not going to get like a ridiculously high excess of the supplies. We're just going to get just enough that we really need to go cover all the alchemy gaps. Whenever we need to go make like a Mines of Bitumen like 11% here, we'll have just enough to go and cover the zone and then not really need to worry about excess. And for example, with this potion right here, we have what, the 7 milestone one, which would be 1 forward, so we can end up seeing that this one probably only covers about 5 levels as well. If we go over to this one right over here, we can see if we go down to passive, that it only ends up covering for 5 levels. So you only have to do this passive for like 3 days, and you have more than enough that you would end up needing for this activity, so you wouldn't really need to do much beyond that. You could also do it for the total of the double EXP. I'm not sure exactly how long this lasts, but basically you could use up the full double XP on every enemy in Mines of Bitumen, and then do the same thing for alchemy, where you use up the full amount of double XP on everything for alchemy. That's also an option. I'm not sure exactly how long that goes, as I haven't personally tested that since they made the change a couple days ago, or whenever they end up making it. But in the live game, we'll probably get a general idea of exactly how long this double XP lasts. So you would end up at maximum using the double XP for each one of these, and then use all these supplies to do the same thing for alchemy, doing the double XP for that full duration that you would end up having there. And then of course, if we wanted to just go and normally end up training now, we would have access to all the enemies in Mines of Bitumen at our highest level range. So since we set this as our final milestone, the main area that we'd want to do combat in then, of course, if we want to go get XP, would be here. So if you wanted to go and do the passive potions, we'd want to do one that has like a lower or higher XP yield, because every single enemy has a different distribution now. So, oh sorry, these are the passives. So we would want to pick an enemy that we could basically AFK, but also has a good XP. We'll be showing this a little bit on the other account when we end up getting there. Actually, is there even a good one for this one? So we'd probably want to do that on something like the Mine Crawler here at this like the base milestone, as it ends up having a pretty decent XP rate, but a low knowledge rate. Since we're not getting any knowledge, it wouldn't really matter. But of course, if we wanted to actively train, we'd want to go to whatever our highest enemy is, and given that we are currently 18 milestone with level 37, the main thing we'd want to go kill is either the cockroach or the wraith, depending on how geared you are. Since we are under geared, we would just go for the cockroach right here, and as you can see, we should be able to pretty easily take it out. Even though we're in pretty under geared, we're basically in full tier 1. Our weapon is also only a tier 2 right now that we're using, so nothing really too fancy as far as what we're doing. Might have to drink like 1 healing potion, but beyond that, you know, it's a pretty even fight. I'm not sure if they really changed combat too much with the changes that they did here. but I do feel like the combat is easier at every single one of these level ranges, even though we're still really, really under geared because there's no armor making skill in the game yet, so we can't run like full tier 2, tier 3, whatever else, even tier 4s. But as you can see, we drank 1 healing potion, and with this damage distribution, it doesn't really look like we needed it. I still drank it just for safety, just to make sure we don't die here. But as you can see, this is currently the highest level thing we could realistically kill, unless we want to go a little bit higher to either Wraith or Blob if we have a good setup for those, or just want to drink higher healing potions. But otherwise, the combat system would work the same as it normally would. These things just spit out reagents like crazy. You will get way more of these than you're ever going to need. It's one of the reasons why you want to put a lot of points into Mind of Batubin, as you're constantly going to be flooded with 4-drop, 4-drop, 4-drop. I believe at like really low level range, they might do a little bit less. But then again, with how the new combat system works, they might just always drop this many, which is kind of crazy because it's just so many alchemy supplies. It's one of the reasons you want to get rid of these 2 chapters, Chronopolis and Mind of Batubin, is they just give you way too much, particularly Mind of Batubin. Mind of Batubin just spits out way too much alchemy supplies, and Chronopolis just spits out too much nothing that you would just keep on the ground. So in both instances, you're just getting stuff that hinders your combat. In Mind of Batubin, you're getting it because your banking time will end up reducing how much EXP you end up getting. And for Chronopolis, you will get less loot because you're constantly getting hides that you're just going to leave on the ground and let despawn, giving less overall loot. So be able to get these 2 chapters out of the way and putting a lot of points in them is highly, highly, highly advised. Even if you do plan to go to Hopeforest, you still should distribute a lot into Mind of Batubin. And of course, with this new system, every 50 levels, you can just switch. So let's say you ended up deciding you wanted to go this build. You got rid of Chronopolis, you went into Mind of Batubin, but then you're like, you know what, I actually do want to go get 500 Forager and go finish out the monument. Well, every 50 levels, you can decide to go change. I can't show that right now because obviously we're not going to farm 50 levels and be here forever. But you could, of course, once you go and reach milestone 19, if we were to gain 13 more levels, we would then be able to go choose another option. We'd be able to go choose another faux pack. And of course, if we are getting tired of Chronopolis and don't want to do this anymore, we can then switch. We could go switch over to chapter 1 and go do Hopeport and then start doing the Forager grind while doing combat. With that being said, let's now go and show the multi-skilling. So I do want to show, I guess I'll just show every location. I didn't actually pre-remember all these, but it shouldn't be that hard to go figure these out real quick. So this is one that I mentioned in the 1 year video and is probably the main one I think we start at depending on our combat range. But there are basically multiple ways in both Hopeport and Hopeforest to be able to do combat while doing multi-skilling. A full list of these includes the Dead-Eyed Death Crow, the Carnivorous Plant, the Hair Beast, and the Ghoul. As far as for Chapter 2, for Hopeforest, these enemies include... Oh, did I not have a Hopeforest one? Oh no, that's going to be a little bit annoying. I don't have either of the 2 accounts set up to that. Well, we'll go make one real quick. Wait, does this have all of them? No, this only has some of them, but basically almost all of them, except for Goblin, I believe ends up having it. The main reason for this is there's a tree pretty much in every room in Hopeforest, so you're pretty much always getting synergy. I think Goblin's the only one because it's in the attunement room, which does not have any resources in it. It just has the attunement tower, which is kind of useless now due to the combat changes in the first rework. So Goblin, I believe, is the only thing in the whole chapter that doesn't have anything in it, whereas everything else has at least one tree laying around that you'll be able to go and multitask for. So of course, now that we are allocated to something like Hopeport, we can now go and end up doing multi-skilling here. So here we can end up doing it with 2 different options. We have the triple potato, which is my personal favorite. We have the quick action as well that you can end up utilizing. So the way that this ends up working whenever you're multi-skilling something is you go and take every single node in the room that you want to take that's relevant. You could also end up banking them if you want, if applicable, otherwise you just drop them on the ground. And then you end up going for 1 kill on the enemy around your level range. Luckily, this is perfectly within our range. There's only 6 levels below us, so we should pretty easily be able to go and take it out. The nice thing about this is it's stationary, so we can easily end up killing it. And we can end up using cryonate weapons as well if we had a good one in order to go and do more damage. Just make sure not to use a green weapon. But of course, you can end up making weapons to exploit enemies. This isn't really too needed in the current state of the game, but of course could definitely help. Drinking strength potions could also be very beneficial if you end up making a ton from alchemy. Buying them isn't really as worth it, but if you're going through the whole new gameplay loop of all of these systems now, you're probably going to have a lot of the boost potions by the time you reach 500 alchemy through the new system, so it might be worth considering or just saving them for future bossing. And you may have noticed with the new respawn timers that have been changed that the plants are already ready to go. So basically you go and pick up 3 of these, go and do a kill. Then you pick up 3 of these, do a kill, and then rinse and repeat. And if you want to bank them, of course, there are banks available. One over there, one over there, if you wanted to bank them. Otherwise, you just drop them on the ground for XP. Similarly, this plant also has a secondary location that can be done, where you could do these 3 hogberries over here. And of course, if they're not at your level range, you could do 1 below and simply get the tier below them. Ideally, you'd want to be doing it at your level range, but if you're doing 1 tier below, it's not too big a deal. It's still, you're still getting knowledge for it. You're still getting some amount of XP. If you still need it for alchemy, you're still getting alchemy supplies. Otherwise, you can just drop them to the ground. And then, of course, you would go do your kill. And by the time we go and complete out one of these kills, we would end up getting the things to respawn. And of course, with the new auto attack thing, which was actually already in the live game, if you go and click on attack option, it will automatically use whatever your previous weapon was. So since we initially used the range weapon, it immediately switched over to the range weapon there. And then by the time we end up killing this enemy, these plants should be revived. If you're using boost potions and proper weaponry, they might not have necessarily respawned yet, but generally speaking, you would have the respawn on these by the time you end up finishing your kill. They should end up respawning in the next like 3 to 5 seconds here, and then we just go and pick them up as soon as we go and finish this kill and just be on our way again. Unless he spawns slower than the potato, but they should spawn about the same speed. We'll find out if they're spawned by the time we finish this, yeah. So pretty much right when you end up finishing the battle, they would have, unless you have like a really strong weapon for your given combat, in which case there might be a small amount of downtime. Otherwise, you would just go pick up your resources again for whatever respective resource you want, get your multi-skilling of the 2 simultaneously, and then we would go kill that plant over there once we go and pick up that, and then we'd go and kill out this plant. So that would be the gameplay loop for going and doing this one. Next, we have the Hair Beast, which has 2 different options, as well as 1 room with quite a lot of resources. It's also closer to the bank, owned by 1 room, since the main bank you would use is right over there. So if you wanted to go get either goat horns or the water lilies banked, you'd be able to do so. And of course, we could end up using pass action on both of these. I think I have to go really low on this one because I don't have the tool for it. But of course, you'd basically just go and pick up every single node in the room that you end up wanting, either the triple goat horn, the triple lily, or both. If you want to end up going for both, depending on your level range, it might be worthwhile to actually end up utilizing both. Don't forget to go and use your action command. Also, I believe these both use a different tool, so you notice we could do a double harvest here, but we should also be able to do a double harvest here because they use a different tool, and the cooldown is set per tool, not per like activity. So if you can multitask multiple different ones, in which case this room has 2, you can get even more value, which is great value for this room. It's actually the highest valued enemy that you can end up killing in Hopeforest due to this, as there are 2 different resources that you can double. Also, if you wanted to do a minimal pickup, if you didn't really care about these and you just want to maximize XP, you can simply just wait for your cooldown and do a double on both. So simply just go grab your double water lily, grab your double goat horn, and then drop them to the ground and simply do it that way. So you don't have to end up doing obviously every single node. You can simply just go for the double, wait for these 2 cooldowns to be done rather than the respawns to be done, and end up doing it that way. Oh, is this guy immune? He is immune to, oh no, he's vulnerable to Necromay. Why are we doing so bad? Is he really high level? Oh, he's the exact same level as us. That's why we're struggling a little bit here. My healing potion is just really bad, so obviously we don't need to kill him here. That's just what the gameplay loop would end up being. Do keep in mind, depending on your level range, you might need to level up a little bit further on a previous enemy. Like, for example, at this current moment in time, even though this is right at my level range, my gear is a little bad right now, so I probably would either need to use better healing pots to end up killing him right now, or just stick with the 6 lower plant and just keep sticking with the potatoes. Let's go now into the other ones. There are, I believe, 2 more enemies that are in this chapter that end up having multi-skilling. This next one being pretty useful because it's monument pieces. So, of course, with the monument being buffed, giving a additional bounty, sorry, not additional bounty, additional venture slot when you end up completing it. It is very high priority now to go and get 500 Forger to go complete that out, as well as just to feed into the alchemy skill. So of course, what you would end up doing is just grab your 3 or all your 4 monument pieces here, grab all 4 of these. You wouldn't even need necessarily a fear potion because you're actively, you know, engaging with combat here. So you don't even need to worry about them attacking you because you would just attack them back. Unfortunately, I don't believe these can be doubled because they don't have a tool associated with them, but we would simply just go grab all 4 of these monument pieces, then go and kill a ghoul here. Since this one is a higher level range, if we wanted to do this and actively wanted monument pieces, we could either level until this one isn't as annoying, or we can simply just downgrade him 1. So we end up downgrading him 1 milestone. So now he will end up giving... Oh! The only problem with that, though, is since I only have 1 milestone into this chapter, he just got downgraded like mega low. So you would want to, if you're going to do that, have at least 2 within a chapter to be able to do that. So I guess I technically can't downgrade him because I only have one milestone in this chapter. So he just downgraded down to level 1 instead of what he otherwise would have downgraded down to like level 17ish or so if we had another milestone. Like if we would have done the previous milestone into this chapter, he would have been downgraded to 17 rather than the level 1 milestone. So that is something to put into consideration. But the main solution to that would be we would just do combat at the plants. We would then do combat at the other area, and then we would move to this guy once we can actually suitably kill him at his adequate level. Because right now we definitely can't with our gear at the moment go and kill that unless we really want to chug healing pots. With all that being said, there is still one more thing that you can end up multi-skilling within this chapter, and that is the Deaf Crow. So as far as the Deaf Crow is concerned, is all the way, of course, over to the east here. It also puts us nicely where I want to go show some of the newer potions, since we might as well, as there were other improvements made to combat as well. These main ones being that you can now AFK for up to 10 minutes, depending on how upgraded your Enrage potion is. Though, do keep in mind, I did end up sending them a support thingy with a bunch of stuff for this one. I never did get a reply to the first time that we ended up sending a mega post, but I made sure to make it a really short this time around. And the main change that they actually end up making based on it, I was mentioning that they should do like a 10-minute AFK timer to match these. I'm not sure if they did do that, but they did end up making the AFK potion lower, which is a little bit unfortunate. But the way that the game works is as a 10-minute ground timer and currently a 5-minute AFK timer. I was trying to get them to make it a 10-minute AFK timer. Is that going to make it into the main game? I sure hope so. However, they did end up making the AFK potions nerfed quite a bit. They were originally going to be like as high as 24 minutes. They have been nerfed down to 10 minutes, which is the exact time as the ground timer. So these are still all really good to end up using, particularly the 9-minute one, as basically if you end up using a 9-minute potion or lower, ideally like one of these 3, a 7, 8, or 9-minute, you can AFK for this full duration on an enemy of your choosing, though it does have to be a weaker enemy because you of course need to not drink any healing potions or any boost potions, so you need to make sure that your base gear is able to kill them fully AFK. But you can AFK for several minutes at a time, and then before the 10-minute ground timer ends up going, so if you end up using either of these 3, once you hear your character stop making any noises because you wouldn't be in combat anymore, you can then go and pick up all the stuff off the ground when using one of these potions, and then you're just good to go. So this is very strong for AFKing. One thing to note though is it no longer gives knowledge points though. They have completely nerfed any amount of knowledge point gain from it, but you still gain EXP, you still gain gold, and more importantly, you still gain drops. So you'd still be able to gain gear upgrades, which is pretty noteworthy compared to normal AFKing, where yes, you do get gold, and you do get EXP, but you get absolutely 0 drops whatsoever, which is the main benefit of using these fear potions, or sorry, the exact opposite of fear, these enrage potions, which make enemies aggressive. We'll be showing those in a second once we go head over here. But let's also go and show this other potion real quick. This is a luck potion that you can end up making from supplies from the botanist. It uses the clover and the sage all the way in the north of that area. Actually, we can see it right over here. It's right over in this area. You end up needing that one quest to be able to go get the sage, but which is the Forgotten Things quest. But you use this teleport stone over there, and these 2 resources right over here, which requires 256 carbonate, I believe, to be able to go get the beehive upgraded from the bee quest. And these 2 resources over here are needed for one of the strongest potions they end up adding, the luck potion. What this ends up doing is it only gets consumed as a charge when you get a drop, and it doubles the chance that you get a higher rarity item. So basically anything higher than a 2-star drop. So as far as this room, the reason why we're here is, of course, we have multi-skilling. We could end up multi-skilling with wall plant. So you can grab these 3 wall plants and then go and kill your death crows, end up getting all of your XP from this, and then you're good to go. So we'll now go and attack a death crow, and by the time we kill that death crow, these 3 will be respawned. But let's go see if we can end up seeing the drop as well. So hopefully we can get one of these luck charges to end up proccing. It procs every single time that we get an item from an enemy. It doesn't matter if it's a 1-star or a higher star, but it will double the chance that it will be a higher rarity, aka a 2-star or higher. Unfortunately, of course, this does proc on every drop, so it does get consumed quite a bit. However, every single time, you're basically getting double the amount of better loot. So it drastically reduces down the time that you would need to go and grind something to actually get a drop. We end up getting -1 luck there. Oh, did they change it? Oh, it actually works on every kill now. Ooh, that's a little unfortunate. Well, even more of a reason not to do Mines of Matubin, because that means if it does a resource drop. Okay, so they increase the charges, but it does a charge every kill now. That is so much worse. But at least they made the charges a little bit higher for each level range, I guess. But that's where you would multi-skill those. However, there is one last thing we can go and show now, though. Is there a low enough enemy? I hope it is. Yeah, these goblins should be. So, of course, when using an AFK potion, you probably want to do it on something that either has a high XP yield or a high loot yield, but ideally a low knowledge yield, because you do not gain any knowledge points from using a enrage potion. So the way that Enrage Potion works, oh, there's actually someone else in the beta here. Interesting. So we can see the warning over here. The chosen foe will be aggressive towards you. Defeating the chosen foe will not grant immunity shield, which is great. But unfortunately, defeating the chosen foe will also not grant knowledge. So this makes it a lot more beneficial to do it on enemy that has a low knowledge yield. In case, in this instance, of course, this goblin has a low knowledge yield. So it's a great enemy to end up doing this on. So we would end up getting better XP and better knowledge output. Can we actually see an XP difference with this one? Oh, I don't have the card. Oh, no, I do. Oh no, it still seems like moving up on enemies is still better though. Even though this does have higher XP for the yield. But of course, the main thing is you want to do it on an enemy that you can actually AFK. It seems like in this particular instance, we aren't quite able to AFK these, which is a little bit unfortunate. We'd have to go down even lower than this, which means I may have to end up doing this on like the Thief or something else, though that has a high knowledge yield, so we wouldn't want to do it on that. But yeah, we might have to just do it on like the Death Crow or something. It looks like we'll barely get away here. But obviously when you're AFKing, you want to be 100% consistent. They'll end up getting the kill. But for just the sakes of showing it right now, this seems good enough. So this is the highest enemy that we currently AFK. And the way that this works is they will automatically go and attack us. I probably should have moved a little bit more to the room. So I will just, no, he'll move over to us. So as you can see, I didn't move at all. We didn't end up getting a barrier. So we will now end up going and attacking him automatically. And we'll be good to go. We'll simply go and start killing. Also, I just realized we didn't use a luck charge that time. So that's weird. Why did the other one consume a luck charge earlier? That makes no sense. Okay, so maybe it does still just do it when it's a drop. That's weird. I don't know. Because I didn't get a drop from the Death Crow, but it still used a charge. But I killed this guy and didn't get a drop, but it didn't use a charge? I don't know. It's weird. But the way that it should work is only when you get a drop of an item, it should consume a charge. Not sure why I consumed one earlier. So regardless if it gives you a rare drop, but only when it ends up giving you an item. So if it gives you a resource drop, it shouldn't consume a charge. And if it gives you coins, it also shouldn't consume a charge. Okay, I'm going to drink a heal potion just so we don't die here. But of course, you'd want to do it on an enemy where you can consistently not die and just AFK it fully. And they also added a cancel option for this now too. So as you can see, we got a great helm and it ends up consuming one of our charges because we got an item. Unfortunately, with the double luck roll, we didn't end up getting it. So of course, one thing that you can also end up doing now is you can now cancel potions. This is great if you want to go and reapply a potion of any kind. So for example, I don't know, our EXP potion here, we have an 11% EXP potion as well. I believe you can cancel these too. So let's say, I don't know, we need to go reapply. It only has like 1 minute left. Or with this thing, let's say we don't want them to be active anymore. If we had to do something, we can go and disengage the enrage potion. And now if we go kill them, we would end up getting knowledge points for killing them again. They'll still obviously be aggressive when we initially walk into the room. But if we were to go and use an immunity shield here, let's see if I can actually get it off. Actually, it's probably just be better to get into combat. But now, of course, since we canceled the potion, if we go and use the immunity shield again, we will now have an immunity shield since we have canceled out the enrage potion, even though they were before enraged. And now, of course, if we want to, let's say, reapply our XP potion, well, we could just cancel it. And let's say we want it immediately back right now if we were doing something where that would be relevant to go get it back up. And there we go. So that's pretty cool. You can now cancel them whenever you end up needing it. And that is everything from this chapter. So let's go now into showing it for chapter 2, which, do I have an account set up for that? I guess I would have to go delete one real quick and go set it up real quick. So let's go and show all of the multi-skilling we can end up doing for chapter 2. We'll just do that over the middle account real quick and we'll be good to go. Actually, we'll do it on this side account there. Get rid of this guy, go get a new thing. I understand this is beta. There we go. All right, let's go and now make an account set up for the next chapters so we can just show it real quick. So of course we'll just go and distribute these wherever. It doesn't really matter as long as we make the last ones into Hopeforest. So we'll just go all in onto we'll just do it in order. It's a thing we didn't do. I definitely would not advise distributing in this way, as these are the 2 best locations to end up doing it in. But since we just want to go and get there real quick, let's go and just spam these out. Go all in on Hopeforest so that this will be our current location that we do combat in. And then let's go and do Hopeforest. So we'll go and I guess do basically every enemy. Pretty much every enemy here except for Goblin has a multi-scaling capability that you can end up doing it for. So let's go get all of our points in and we should be good to go. That was our final one. All right, let's go do combat now. So we drop all that, and let's go teleport to Hopeforest. Actually, let's do this in order of the top to bottom just so that we end up getting them all. So let's go all the way from the top, and yeah, let's go through these. So we'll start with the Outlaw. Hopefully I have all the tools. I don't believe they added any new tool that I would need to go re-get on this account. But I might have to do it on like the lowest level thing, but it doesn't really matter since obviously we're not keeping any of the levels or EXP. So first things first, the Outlaw is right over in this hallway over here. There is a multi-skilling with it with whatever trees over here. It's one of the new trees. I forget which one it is. We're about to find out since we don't even have it identified. This tree is a teak tree. What is teak trees used for? I actually forget off the top of my head. That's something we'll need to mess around with on the actual day of. Because honestly, I forget what half these new resources do, or at least some of them. Like all the potion ones I remembered, but a lot of the carpenter ones I completely forget because most of them are so irrelevant. So of course, what we can end up doing with these is go and chop them, double them up, and you can take every single tree in this room and then go and multi-skill onto Outlaw and go and kill them here. We can also end up doing this for that of the plant that's in here. So we can actually instantly grow a plant, which is kind of cool too. So over here, we can kill outlaws, and you have it for both the botanist skill and for woodcutting. So here we can go and end up picking this up, and then we can instantly grow this out. So we could use a double here. Hey, another beta player. There's still people testing. Okay, so we could instantly grow it, and as you can see, we now cultivated it, and then boom, you can instantly grow an entire plant. You can also grab all the other ones in the room if you want to. Just grab all 4 of these, and then obviously by the time you go and complete out taking all 4 of them, you would then go and engage in combat and go kill out your enemy, and then you'd be good to go. But for now, we'll just go and start skipping these since we still have a few to go show. But, you know, you just go and kill it out, and then by the time you have killed this out, all 4 of these would have respawned by the time you end up killing them due to the new respawners, as they made quite a few things respawn quite a bit quicker, and most of them end up respawning at pretty much perfect timing for a kill, which ends up working out great for multitasking combat. All right, with that one in the way, let's go over to the next one. Goblin, unfortunately, does not have any multi-skilling. It is the only thing, I believe, in this entire chapter that has no multi-skilling, but otherwise this chapter is perfect, since every single thing has multi-skilling in it. The goblins are just over here, and yeah, there's no way to end up multi-skilling with them, as it has the obelisk tower, which is kind of irrelevant to be in that room anymore, because that was back when the game launched, where you could attune weapons to chapters, but now that thing being there is pretty irrelevant, and yeah, it's the worst one to end up killing in this entire chapter. Next, we have the bear. This is located in the northwest over here. The bear has yew trees as multi-skilling. I don't believe it has anything else because they got rid of the other resource in the room. I'm pretty sure, yeah, beer, beehive, yeah, you only have yew trees. You have 2 different rooms you could end up doing it in. So if one's crowded, you do have a second room, or if one of them has better layout for yew trees. I'm not sure which one these actually does at the moment, but whatever one is a little bit better, or whichever one you prefer, or if one is more crowded, you have 2 different rooms of the exact same thing that you can end up doing. This one is closer to the bank, so it'd probably still be better to do this one. But basically what you would do is you would go and take every single yew tree in this area. Actually, I might have low enough. Yeah, I didn't buy the bigger tool, so I'm just do it on the lowest one. Doesn't matter, but just do it on whatever highest one you have access to. End up taking a tree. Take the double action if you have a bigger tool. I think this low level tool doesn't have access to it, but if you do, of course, obviously go for your double, and then you would kill a bear. And then by the time you go and take all these yew trees, kill a bear, the yew trees would have been respawned, and then you go take all the yew trees again, put all your yew logs into there, as well as whatever other drops you have, and rinse and repeat over and over again. And that would be this room. Next, we have the Windingo. This has a tree right in both its rooms. If we go over to Hopeport Central, it is just south of that location. And this one has, of course, woodcutting multi-synergy. Most of these do end up getting woodcutting, but some of them do have gatherer, or not gatherer, I mean botanist, since they end up changing it. So, of course, we got a lot of these cool new shortcuts, too. I don't think any of them have combat synergy in their room, though. So here, of course, we have the Windingos. He's always aggressive, but you would end up going and taking all of the, what tree is this? The pine trees that are in here. There are 2 in here, and how many does the other room have? Any? It does have pine trees. Is this one better, or is the other one better? They both seem to have, okay, that one seems to have 3 from what I could tell. No, it's still 2. So you'd want to do it in this room because it's closer to the bank. Because the main bank that you would use for this area is the bank right over there, right next to that storage rift. So you would end up grabbing these 2 trees, getting a kill, do it again, rinse, repeat, and keep doing that over and over again until you have a full inventory. And then you would go bank, rinse, repeats, and you would get all your multi-skilling here. Take these 2 trees, get a kill, take your 2 trees, get a kill, so on and so forth. Next, we have ourselves the Vipers. So the Vipers are a little bit annoying because you have to walk so far for them. However, the location where they are closer, I believe, also has a resource that you can end up picking up, unless they end up moving it. But I don't believe they did. No, actually they did. There's poplars there now. Interesting. So these are the 2 poplar rooms. Where are the poplar trees then? So this one has, well, only one poplar tree. That's not really that useful. Hopefully the other one has like 2 or 3 right in that middle area, because that's where the snakes or the vipers are way closer to each other. So hopefully they're right there where the old resource used to be. Right in the middle here. Is there a double tree here? Yes, perfect. So this is where you would do your location. Hopefully there's no one else crashing you in the world, because this one is way better than the other one. So you would grab your 3 poplar trees and then take your double snake. This one is very likely to be a crowded location though, if you were to ever do this at your given level range, as there's only one spot to properly kill these, whereas something like the bears and quite a few of the other ones have multiple viable spots. But here you would just go grab your 3 trees, go kill your viper, grab your 3 trees, kill your viper, so on and so forth. And these would be the 2 vipers you'd probably want to go and focus on. Though I guess if you end on that tree, you could maybe go for that viper. But ideally you would go and take these 3 trees and then kill these 2 double vipers that are right next to each other. Or you can keep alternating from this viper to that viper when you end up finishing your cycle, since you'll be closer to this viper when you take this tree. But then when you finish that tree, you'll be closer to that viper. So you can keep doing multi-skilling back and forth between these 2 then. Next, let's go do the Bramboleth, or actually, we could just mention the Bramboleth. Bramboleth has no multi-skilling, so no reason to go there. It's a pretty bad one to end up doing. They hit really hard. It's kind of like the not the Nagawa, the Hag from the chapter 4. It's really annoying with how much burst damage it has, and has no multi-skilling, so you'd probably always skip it, similar to the Goblin of this chapter. Next we have the Sprigadin and the Shade, which I guess will go up north, as both of them are close over there, and both of these also have multi-skilling with a tree. Unfortunately, there was only, one of them that had multi-skilling with a botanist, which was the Outlaw. However, every single other thing in this chapter, other than Goblin and Bramboleth, has a synergy with a tree in this chapter. So a lot of woodcutting synergy that you can end up getting. So as far as the Sprigum, you can end up doing this with hickory trees. So the hickory trees are found over here. You can end up getting the multi-skilling, take all 3 of these trees, and then go and kill your Sprigum. Next, we can end up doing it for the other tree that's over here with the shades. So there's 2 different rooms you can end up doing for this, and these end up having the suave trees. I believe the other room's a little bit better for it because they're not as far apart. So let me go over to this room. I forgot how many Sprog trees it has. Does it have any? We should have some of the suaves. No, it only has the 1 though. So I guess you would have to stick with this room over here, because 1 is not going to cut it. Though it is closer to the bank, I guess. I don't know. This one might not be as good of a synergy, but it does have some synergy. The problem with this area is the trees are very far apart. But at least if it's crowded, there's multiple different areas they can do it in. So it has that going for it. But yeah, it looks like you're going to have to do it on maybe just 1 suave tree then, because this one is way closer to the bank, because the bank you would use is right over there. So the best way to end up doing this might just be to just camp 1 suave tree, just do these enemies then, since it's just closer to the bank. It's not ideal compared to some of the other enemies, but it's better than having no multi-skilling at all. So yeah, there's that. So that's pretty much everything with it. You ideally want to be doing combat in the first 2 chapters so you can get multi-skilling capabilities. Chapter 3 and 4 I would say are personally the worst ones to end up doing it in, with 3 being particularly bad for doing it passively, because you would end up getting way too much passive supplies that you would just end up selling to the shop and not end up using, as you only need it for a handful of levels, whereas you're going to get way more than a handful of levels worth of supplies. But the verdict is try to skip as many Mines of Bituba and Chronopolis levels as you can, and try to do actively as many Hopeport and Hopeforest levels as you can. Try to put all of your milestones into these later chapters, just get rid of them, and actively go do the first 2 chapters, particularly Hopeport, to go get 500 Forager if you haven't already, to finish out the new Venture slot activation from completing out the monument, or otherwise get really good EXP from Hopeforest, since it has the best and most amounts of multi-synergy of any chapter currently within the game. Hopefully chapter 5 will also be similar to how this chapter is set up, where you can end up getting a lot of multi-skilling capabilities for pretty much every single enemy within the chapter, with the only enemies that you don't end up having it would probably be the enemies that you would end up skipping, being goblins that you would completely skip, and the Bramboleths that you would probably completely skip, and stick with the other enemies so you can get your multi-skilling capability, so you can get far more value from your activity, while also getting a lot more knowledge points, since you'll be able to go and use the doubles every single time they pop up. You'll be able to get multiple different skills up at the exact same time, and it would just be an overall just better leveling experience compared to just having to do combat only the entire time, unless you do like doing combat only the entire time, in which case Mind of Bitumen would probably be your best option, as has a lot of combat into a lot of banking of those combat resources. But otherwise, yeah, chapter 1 and 2, most highest priority to do actively. Use all your points on 3 and 4 just to get rid of them. And that's pretty much everything I wanted to go over. If you still have any other questions, feel free to leave it in the comment section below. And as we mentioned, we will be streaming this pretty much every single day once the update ends up hitting live. It should be coming out this Monday on February the 9th. On the first day, we'll probably just go mess around with every new activity. And then the next day afterwards, we're going to be doing finally our 1 month monument grind. I mentioned this pretty early on within the first few months that we would be streaming this eventually every single day for a month whenever we get around to it. And that's finally now. So we'll be doing that here on the channel starting on Monday. Well, technically starting on Tuesday, I guess. But on Monday, we'll be going over everything else. But the actual monument grind will be truly starting on that Tuesday then. And yeah, we'll see how long it takes in the new system to go get our lowest level skill all the way to max while doing combat and forager the entire time. As of course, we'd be multi-skilling it on every single thing in chapter 1 in order to go and get both of them up simultaneously, as that would be the game plan. Obviously, we'll have to do some forager only at some level ranges, depending on where our level ranges are. But if our level ranges match up really nicely for whatever enemies we have to go do, then of course we will do both of them simultaneously. But otherwise, we would just focus all in on forager and start working that up. But that's pretty much the game plan. Get all of our multi-skilling combat XP and yeah, go from there. Anyways, guys, I hope you all have a wonderful update patch. And yeah, I guess I will see you in Milestone update on this Monday. Goodbye, everyone, and thanks for watching.